Okay, today we start The Unlucky Part 13 of the collection. First up, we're going to start with a Russian immigrant whose pen name was Victor Serge. Real name was Konstantin, God bless America, was Victor Lvovich Kabalchich. He was an anarchist that was born in the Soviet Union. He supported the Bolsheviks, and he worked with them. He fought with them, and then he turned on them. And then he immigrated to Western Europe, where they always welcome in immigrants from the Soviet Union at the time. And he became quite a favorite among the André Gide crowd and stuff. He ended up in jail in France, too, for anarchist type stuff. So he was in and out of jail everywhere he went. The Unforgiving Years by Victor Serge. And again, this is a story about, it's his final novel, and it's about a guy who's broken with the Communist Party, and you can pretty much figure the rest, because he wrote this in France, and he's probably to appease his masters in NATO. And it's a pretty good novel. He's a good writer. He knows how to write suspense. Regardless of the ideological stuff that he puts into it and the polemical edge he always gives. He was an anarchist, and you scratch an anarchist, and what do you get? Well, it starts with an F and ends with isht. The middle is ass. I just made that joke up. Right here we got Herbert Marcuse again, A Study on Authority. This features a overview of concepts of authority from Luther and Calvin all the way to Marx and Hegel and Kant, and it's very good, and I really highly recommend it. It's very the brevity is refreshing. It's only about 110 pages, and it goes also into Sorel and Pareto too, some of the anarcho-syndicalists and stuff. And that's about it on that one. All right, next up is another book, Turgenev's Literary Reminiscence. So there we go. Magarshak, who's a good Russian translator, does this. It's a volume by Farrar Straus and Guru Giroux. And the introduction is pretty good. It has a full introduction on Turgenev and his things by Edmund Wilson. This is not bad. And then you have Turgenev talking about Gogol, Zhukovsky, Krylov, Lermontov, and other writers. And it's pretty good. He met with a lot of people. He was a very charming man, and he really, a lot of people had beef with him, but he really never beefed back, which was, I think, a good trait. He just continued writing. Okay, here's an interesting book that I got. Penguin always provides these. 4 Tudor comedies. Jacques de Jugulaire, Royster Doyster, Gammer Gurton's Needle, Mother Bombay. You'd think that this would be from the 60s with the slang and stuff. But it's written in the a lot of the work is written in the Elizabethan, and luckily it has if it gets too thick for you, it has a glossary in the back that helps you out. It has a star by it, and then you go back and you check, and you discern what exactly they're talking about. But these are very funny. The Elizabethan times were a time of ferment and a lot of artistic activity and a lot of ribaldry and coarse humor. It's pretty good. Okay, next up is one of my favorite volumes, and I love the cover of this. It features a pre-Raphaelite painting by Sir Edward Burne-Jones, Laus Veneris, which is, of course, the Virgin. And there we go. Isn't that beautiful? Algernon Charles Swinburne, Poems and Ballads in Atalanta and Caledon. And this is an excellent edition, well made. Good stuff. I really like Swinburne as a poet. And that's all I'm going to say about this. A lot of poetry in here. A lot of notes too. I always read the notes. I think they're great. They really bring out a lot of the meat um, and nutrients within the poetry. Okay, here's a brick of a book. It weighs, I'm telling you, it weighs about 10 pounds. It's called Against the Day, Thomas Pynchon, or Pynchon, however you want to do it. And boy, is it a fat book. That's money there. Yeah, it's over 1,000 pages, which is, it's not surprising from Pynchon. He has a lot to say, and he's got a lot of character development to go through. And this book is a pretty good book. Features a lot of time travel between Chicago World's Fair and just after World War One, and it's excellent stuff. Pynchon is always going to be rewarding, even if it's disturbing to you or whatever, or it has things that are disagreeable. The style of his the style of his writing is never. Wow, my voice is changing. I must be going through puberty again. It's really good. Okay, next up is a really great book by Alfred Jarry called The Garden of Priapus. And this is in a book that I found in a bookstore, and I bought it for like $1 or something. And when was it published? Hold on, that's what I'm trying to get to. The Garden of Priapus. Yeah, Priapus, how do you say his name? He's the garden god. Okay, and this is Black Hawk Press, 1936, and here you have a Messalina turned for a farewell look. Messalina, of course, was the wife of a Roman emperor, and I think I have already mentioned who that Roman emperor was, but if you don't listen to the last ones, I would tell you that it was Claudius. And it has a lot of great illustrations in it, and it's a pretty funny and also kind of risque work, and it's pretty good. It's really nice. I highly recommend it. It's a fun read. Okay, here is probably one of the funniest novels ever written. Yaroslav Hasek, The Good Soldier Svek. This is a scene from it. Svek is opening the door to the officers. He's sort of like a nincompoop that is really smarter than everybody else, but he acts dumb, and he plays a lot of clever tricks and does a lot of funny stuff. And he takes people at their literal word at times when it's hilarious. And this basically sends up the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Hasek was, of course, a Czech writer, so his derision for the Austro-Hungarian Empire runs deep. It's a very long novel. It's like it's nearly 700. I think it's just over 750 pages, and it is hilarious. It is a quick read, and it's all about World War One and all the mess ups that the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Their officers and all of them were kind of nincompoops and couldn't get anything right. And Zvek is sort of pokes fun of that, and as a character, he's sort of a foil for a lot of things. And it's really a riot. It's a great book. I really, please, if you ever want to read another book and laugh and have fun and really enjoy reading it, buy that. The Good Soldier Svek. It's awesome. Okay, here we go with another book from the Australian Patrick White, Riders in the Chariot. And this is an interesting novel. It's set in an Australian suburb, intertwines four deeply different lives: an Aborigine artist, a Holocaust survivor, a beatific washerwoman, and a childlike heiress, and are each blessed or stricken with visionary experiences that may or may not allow them to transcend the machinations of their fellow man. And I will say that this is a very interesting and great work by White. White is pretty good. That's all I'm going to say. Next up, Jerome K. Jerome, 3 Men in a Boat, 3 Men on a Bummel. This is very light and hilarious stuff. It is a great book, and it's very funny. And it's exactly what it says it is. 3 Men in a Boat, 3 Men on a Bummel. It's about travels. It's about the hijinks they get up to, and then what they're sometimes they get trapped into. And this is a very, very funny book. Highly recommend it. And next up is an old edition, paperback, hardback of, look at the little devil here. Of course, it's Ambrose Bierce's The Devil's Dictionary. And this is a let me see, World Publishing. Well, it doesn't say. Well, it just starts out. It doesn't even give me a date. I don't like that. Oh, here it is. My apologies. 1911. 1911. And it's really a funny book. I'll give you a definition. Slang. The grunt of the human hog with an audible memory. The speech of one who utters with his tongue what he thinks with his ear, and feels the pride of a creator in accomplishing the feat of a parrot. A means, under Providence, of setting up as a wit without a capital of sense. That's pretty good. Although I love slang. I think slang sometimes is best, and it can really work. But if you lean on it too much, then his definition definitely sticks. All right, next up is Bartolomeo Platina's Lives of the Pope. This is volume 1, from antiquity to, I believe, what pope? What pope do we get at last? I've read this. It's pretty dry, but it's very informative, and it's got a lot of notes from antiquity to Leo I, meaning from the first pope when they instaurated the Roman Church to Leo I. And I believe Leo I started ruling in, I want to get this right. Oh, this is Sixtus III. Sixtus III. Come on, man. They're making me work here. And this is part of the, 440 to 461 AD was the last pope. This is the volume 1 and then volume 2. And this is from the Itati Renaissance Library, which provides a ton of books like this that are awesome, that are great historical sources. And Platina, I want to get volume 2, but I have yet to get it. I've read this one. It's very good, very informative, and some funny stories. These volumes are really well done with the cover, and then you got a hardbound underneath it. They're kind of expensive for books, but they're worth it, in my opinion. All right, next up is one of the most heartbreaking stories you'll ever read. There's some comedy in it, but the comedy is not the theme of this. It's Theodore Fontaine's Effie Briest. And this novel is just, it's a gut punch. And it's so beautifully written, and I really can't say enough about this. And, you get the standards of the times during the era that he covers, which was Depression. During the Depression, they called it an empire, but it's kind of laughable to call it an empire, even though it was expanding and stuff. And this was, I think, written in, let me see, I just want to make sure I'm right about this. Yeah, Effie Briest was written in 1895. And this was during the time when it was kind of in decline, and had been after the, its peak was when it was in France, and the Franco-Prussian War won and all that other stuff. And this is like I guess maybe about 15 to 20 years after that, maybe more. Okay, next up is another awesome book I have. It's John Milton, The Complete Poems. And I love this. It has a complete edition of course, Paradise Lost, Samson Agonistes. It's got Paradise Regained. Byron had a great joke. He wrote Paradise Lost as he was when he was married, and he wrote Paradise Regained after he was divorced, or I think after his wife died. It was a pretty acerbic and cruel joke, but it was funny. And it also has Lycidas, however you pronounce that, has some of his sonnets, which are pretty good. They're not given as much, it has all, what's my favorite poem? Of course, L'Allegro, and Il Penseroso. And you've got, where's Lycidas at in here? Oh, you got the sonnets. Oh, Lycidas is right there. And that's a great one. And of course, Paradise Lost, which is and Paradise Regained. Paradise Regained isn't as good, but Paradise Lost is just an outstanding, where he teaches the ways of God to men, which is such a mighty line. I can't see anything right now. It's okay. Okay, next up is it's a classic. People talk about it a lot. Henry James, Modern Library Edition of The Portrait of a Lady. This is a fat book, and it's an okay book. But, you get kind of bored with the tone at times. But again, James is a great American writer, and I don't want to crap on American writers. Not that I'm partisan or anything, but whatever. All right, this is a great Modern Library edition of the best Russian short stories. It's a pretty good collection. You have, hold on, where are some of the ones that I like? It has a bunch by, of course, Chekhov. And you have a lot by Tolstoy and some by Dostoevsky. But these are not and some by Turgenev too, but these are not short stories that are well known, except for, of course, The Cloak by Gogol, which is a classic that basically inspired Dostoevsky's The Overcoat, I guess. And of course, it's got Pushkin's The Queen of Spades, which is one of the best Russian short stories ever. But it's got quite a bit, and it goes all the way into to the 20th century with The Red Laugh and Bunyan's This Woman from San Francisco. It's a good collection. Glad to have it. And next up is a book that I read just a few months ago. And this is a woman dying of cancer. Her name was Gillian Rose. She was a great, I think she was a sociologist and philosopher. She wrote a great book called Hegel Contra Sociology, which is a masterpiece of analysis on Hegel. This work, though, is very personal. And it's about how she finds out she has cancer. She goes through the entire experience of chemotherapy, being in the hospital, everything it's about. And she also talks about how life is still sweet, which is an amazing, amazing thing to read when someone's sitting down and they have cancer. And she basically has a death sentence hanging over her head. She knows how long she has an idea of how long she's got. And she just pours everything into it. And she talks about how love's work is facing death, and making your last hours count and your last days count. And this is a very moving work. I'm going to tell you, it's very moving. And if you read this work, you'll really, I won't say enjoy it, but you'll appreciate the deep sensitivity in the work towards the experience of being stricken with cancer and having to face death. It's an amazing book, and I highly recommend it to anyone, any human being that that wants to know about love, because it's amazing how she turns it around. You know, she has a death sentence hanging over with the cancer diagnosis, and it's terminal. And she was a professor at I believe in Birmingham, England, and UK, and yeah, I think she's a professor of philosophy. And you know, she kept going, and she kept loving life, and she kept loving every moment because it was precious. So I just can't say enough about it. It's very emotional. Okay, next up is another classic by Henry James, a shorter work called Washington Square. This is an Oxford World's Classic Edition. This is probably one of his best books, but it's short, and you know, it's not a fat novel, and so a lot of literary guys were not going to say a lot about it, but it's very good. And next up is I don't believe it's his. I think it's his first published novel, Henry James Roderick Hudson, and it's a little bit different than the rest of his work, and it's pretty good because it's much more dramatic and much more active than the staid descriptions and luxurious prose of his later novels. But it's a good novel. It's well written. It tells a good story, and it's a pretty good work. All right, I got 2 more to go, and then I'm going to stop, folks. Okay, this is a book by K. Redfield Jameson called An Unquiet Mind, a Memoir of Moods and Madness. And it's funny, it's sad, it's pretty interesting. It talks a lot about psychiatry, goes into cultural stuff like the Vietnam War protests and stuff like that. And it talks about the struggle, you know, and basically the title basically describes what it's about, An Unquiet Mind. And it's a pretty good read. Next up is a classic by Joycal Huisman, Au Rebords, or in English called Against Nature. And this is a book where a man who decides to live life literarily or ideally by never leaving home and just doing things and like he takes a cup of tea or something and he eats roast beef and he imagines he's in London, whereas he's still in Paris in his flat, and he really doesn't go out a lot. And Des Essence, I can't say that, it's very difficult to say, is the main character, and he's a very fascinating character. Kind of a shut-in's noble resistance to the plague of vulgar culture. That's what I'll call Au Rebords or Against Nature. Because it's really, but it is a polemic in a way, in novel form, against naturalism. In novels, you know, mostly probably taking pot shots at Zola and other people, which is fair. It's okay. It's good for literature that stuff like that happens. Okay, next up is going to be the last one, Lives of the Later Caesars, and these are by various historians who wrote tracts on Severus, Pertinax, Marcus Antoninus, Aelius, Hadrian, Trajan, going all the way to, pardon, that was gross, Heliogabalus, which is very interesting stuff. It's not as well written as the lives of Suetonius or Plutarch, but it's very good. And that'll be all for today, folks. I thank you for your patience with me and for the information I give. Sometimes it's not what you would expect or what you would think, or maybe you've read the book and you said, oh, that's not right, but it's just my take from it. You know, I didn't come down from heaven to give these things. I just do it for fun and what I got from the books. And some of these books I haven't read I read so many years ago that I have to just go by memory. And my memory is pretty good, and I get a basic feel of the book and some of the main features about it, but I might miss some things. And that'll be all for today. Thank you, folks. Have a great day.